We had as a guest the former Senator Mike Gravel, who's from Alaska. His parents grew up in Quebec. He was born over in Massachusetts. And he was actually talking, he actually supports the war resistors when we had him on here. And he's actually he's a veteran of the United States military. And the question I have for you, when you basically talk about, if you were to bring up the issue of war resistors during the campaign, if you could also, I'd like to suggest that you talk about the family values and the family unit of keeping the war resistors here, because what we're finding is an awful lot of conservative supporters, when we went and got the petition signed over in Richmond, there's a big conservative supporter base in there. And when we started talking about family value, there's an awful lot more people willing to sign the petition than if we just said, well, Rodney Watson, he's going to get deported. So if I could suggest, that's one thing that your party may want to look into with raising, because of the fact that you're one of the rare parties that is doing this issue, and you have to just tell the conservative supporters that if you truly believe in family values, then you'll be back in a party that actually walks its walk and talks the talk at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point, Ben, although I do want to be a little bit cautious about it, because somebody like Rodney Watson should be able to stay in Canada, no matter whether he has a child here in Canada who's a Canadian citizen now, or whether he has a relationship with someone here in Canada. It's an important principle that we need to make sure is well established in our law here in Canada. And you're right, we shouldn't be using our immigration policy, we shouldn't be using our concerns about our relationship with the United States to split up families who that have gotten off to a start here in Canada. We need to make sure that that those folks, that their decisions, that their relationships, that the children's citizenship, for instance, that all of those things are respected. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that that people who make this decision of conscience to come to Canada should have that welcome, whether or not they're in a relationship with a Canadian, whether or not they have a child here in Canada. It's a very important principle. I think it's a sound one, and on that basis alone, I think we should move forward. You're right. In a case like Rodney's or others who do have families, it's that extra push that will get us the ear of some people who wouldn't normally maybe be interested in hearing about this particular issue. But as I say, I don't want to lose track of the fact that this should be a possibility for any person of conscience who opposes the war in Iraq, who comes to Canada and doesn't want to continue their service in that illegal war.
I agree with you 100% there, Bill. I just wanted to raise that issue because that's what I was noticing. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, I'm someone, I've even sent this email out. I said that I do not support the ideas of war. I support that basically we bring the troops home as being a veteran. And what happens is with any war resistor here, even Brad McCall and other war resistors that don't have children here, I support keeping them here because the Iraq war was illegal. I had David Orchard on as a guest in the past, and he's talking about how the Afghanistan war was illegal. So I think that basically, rather than our nation looking at becoming a warlike nation, which the Conservative Party and even some members of the Federal Liberal Party pushed our nation into being, I think it's time that we, the Canadian people, stand up and say, look, we want to pull our nation back. Yes, we've had a dark past, as I said before, but let's start teaching the children about our past. Let's start teaching the children that, grabbing a weapon and basically going to war is not the answer. What the answer is, building a nation for the people, building a nation where we can bring in other immigrants, where we can allow more people in here, where we're fair to the First Nations, where we enter into partnership with the First Nations. That's the nation that we should be worried about building. We should be worried about investing the money within the Canadian borders first, because the word Canada means village. So therefore, our village stretches from one coast to the other coast. It has two official languages, being English and French. And what happens is we have to embrace every single part of Canada and say to the Canadian people, this is our nation. We welcome newcomers. We welcome the addition of their culture. And, we have to start standing up for what our nation is. Otherwise, our nation will be just pushed right over top, and I don't want to see that happen. I want to see the nation of Canada protected.
Well, and I think it's interesting that that you mentioned how we train people, how we raise our children to appreciate issues of peace. One of the things that this Department of Peace Initiative legislation will seek to do is to establish a professional civilian peace service for Canada so that we have professionally trained Canadians in mediation and nonviolent dispute resolution, those kinds of things that would be available both domestically to mediate those kinds of disputes as they arise in Canada, but also internationally. And that comes out of the observation by many Canadians who do that kind of work, who go as peace observers, who go as who go to watch the process of democratic elections, that often they're the better trained people out of a pretty miserably trained group of people who are doing very, very important work. And that the need for people who have a professional background in the skills, proven skills in those kinds of areas is really crucial around the world. The bill also talks about establishing a youth peace service that would kind of be the peace equivalent of cadets, air cadets, Navy cadets, those kinds of that kind of organization in Canada, so that young people would also have the ability to get that kind of training, to make that kind of commitment as young people, and to have the kinds of benefits of doing that in an organized kind of way, and that would teach them values that I'm sure would be very important to them in later life. So I think all of those things are contemplated in this legislation, and I really hope that at some point in the near future we can have a debate in Canada about how we can restructure our government, how we can restructure our priorities as Canadians to put peace in the center of what we do domestically and internationally. I think we fell into things like the war in Afghanistan because we had for a long time made an assumption that Canada was a peacekeeping country, but I don't think we'd done anything structurally or policy-wise to make sure that was actually, in fact, the case. We all liked the idea, but I don't think that there was enough structure around that to make sure that we couldn't fall into this aggressive combat role in Afghanistan. And I want to make sure that we don't make that mistake again, that Canadians who are committed to peace have the opportunity, and that government has peace as a central value, both in terms of policy and structure, to make sure that we can go that road instead in the future.